So in 2013 when I arrived, the district had been through a difficult time and primarily we were very much focused on the state test every year. And with the managers we got together and the staff that was here in early 2014, the end of 2013, and started thinking about how do we create a culture that really is about building relationships with kids, getting closer to kids, and having them find their voice in class. And we came up with a term called active learning. And that was one of the 4 pillars that we initially created for the school district. We talk about El Paso ISD becoming a cornerstone of just an economic engine, an educational institution that helps drive the economy in this particular city, this county. And we talk about 21st century jobs. And we know that 21st century jobs require our kids to be active and engaged and collaborators. There are very few jobs now that don't require collaboration. You see these wide open workspaces, no walls, no offices. Folks have to be able to work together. We thought, why don't we create a situation where with active engaged learning, a child can not only be taught with the academic rigor that's required and meet the state standards, but they'll learn these other social and emotional skills at the same time, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration skills. You can't do that if you're being lectured to and you're not speaking in class. There's no other way to build the 21st century workforce in our mind unless you do it in a collaborative environment.
We want our children to be successful. And if you really think about what it takes to be successful, it takes them being able to be effective bilingual educators. Because in this global economy, there are multiple languages spoken, not just English. And we want our children to be thinkers, critical thinkers. We want them to be able to take multiple pieces of data and really think about how to come to a conclusion, which speaks to problem solving also. We want them to be problem solvers. That is why the active learning framework is so important for our work today.
We want to make sure that with the active learning framework, that children have a chance, as we said, to find their voice and to not only, learn all of the academics required by the state, but be able to have all these other skills that we know are important for life and for work. The longer term goal so the way I've cast the vision for myself and what I would love for us is for us to be able to say that when you meet a graduate from the El Paso Independent School District, and the way that they're articulate and they're engaging and the way that they can communicate, I hope you see that as something that came from this school district because we gave kids an opportunity to find their voice through an active, engaged learning environment.
So about 3 years ago, we went out to the community and we asked our community, what do you want for an EPISD graduate?
So through that we had community members, we had parents, students, staff, like teachers, anybody that could, that wanted to weigh in. And the framework is really to tie every initiative that we have. We started out with a platinum cohort, which was pretty much a district-wide, it was a volunteer. And so teachers from across the district and different campuses in teams or even by themselves. We had some campuses that maybe had 2 teachers in that first cohort. This year that we're in is the diamond cohort, and we did it by feeder pattern. So we had 2 feeder patterns plus a high school. So Burgess was in this cohort by itself, and then next year's will be the gold cohort. So we went from platinum to diamond, and now we're down to the gold cohort. We are looking to train about 1,200 next year, and we've already trained about 1,500 so far.
Our goal is to train and coach every teacher in active learning. And we have a 5-year plan to ensure that every teacher is not only knowledgeable about how to create these learning experiences, but they can also drive these learning experiences for their colleagues who continue to come into our district.
So the support for the teachers comes in the form of coaching. So there's coaches that we are training internally, but in the meantime we have Engage to Learn as our partner, and the coaches come in side by side with the teachers and start planning how to move that active engaged learning to become a reality. So it really is a way for teachers to learn in a very safe environment, because these are not appraisers, these are not evaluators, they're actually coaches standing side by side giving them ideas.
The coaching that our teachers get through this active learning process is based on these 13 best practices that have been curated by Engage to Learn. And the best practices are, of course, based on years and years of empirical data that show what students need in order to learn. And so these best practices are what they set goals on. The teachers set goals and they bring artifacts and evidence to show how they're meeting these best practices, and the coaches work with them to help them improve how they're carrying out these best practices.
Well, first of all, it starts with the design phase. And so through that design phase, the teacher looks at the standards, designs those standards to make sure that students are learning what they need to learn. So the teachers really design it and then turn it over to the students in the form of a challenge. And what we try to get them to do is a challenge that is authentic. And they design work still with the standards, but then they design the work to make it engaging and meaningful for students. You want students to really take ownership of that learning, and the only way they're going to do that is if they find meaning and purpose in what they're learning.
The students during Explore, they go out and they get information through research, through interviews with experts. They do inquiry. And so they're trying to find this information that will help them to respond to this challenge that they've been given by their teacher. And ultimately, during the Explore and Refine phases of the framework, it's a feedback loop where they're getting that feedback from experts, from peers, from teachers, so they're collaborating. And finally, when they get to demonstrate, they're able to show how they have been able to meet the challenge that was originally given to them. So this whole process really helps them to become better problem solvers and critical thinkers.
Since implementing the framework, students are now more engaged. They know why they're coming to school every day. They know what challenge we're solving. They know how that relates to the bigger picture of I have to know how to read well so I can communicate well and solve problems. So it's really come alive.
Well, what I like about the active learning framework is that each student has a role. So just by definition, of course, the role allows them to be autonomous, to be able to go ahead and fulfill their portion of their part of the project. The collaboration that's needed between them to go ahead and ensure that the project is completed, ensure that the project is completed as well as they can be, kind of almost pushes them, or almost in a way forces them to become autonomous learners.
I have grown as a teacher using the learning framework by being more organized and more prepared. I feel that it helped me set up my lessons in a better way, in a more effective way, where the goals and the product is more evidence. I've also grown as a teacher because my scores have improved significantly, which is also always a great benefit. And most importantly to me is that my students are engaged. They're having fun while they're learning, and they're actually interested in the things that they are learning.
You're able to differentiate your instruction, and so I know exactly what my TEKs are, and so I'm able to provide more one-on-one instruction, more personalized instruction to all levels, not just high, medium, low, but it's individualized now. So by giving the class over to the students in forming a truly student-centered classroom, they're not only autonomous for themselves, but myself as a teacher, and now the role of a facilitator, is really to take a deeper approach to what they need personally. Some of them need academic support, some of them need, more emotional support or just guidance, and then I'm able, even for my higher achievers, to really extend their learning now because I have time. I'm not in front of the classroom anymore. They're in charge of their environment, and they request workshops from me. So they're seeking knowledge from me as a resource, but they also know they have a resource that's not me in a DIY center, or they know how to do research on PebbleGo, for instance, we use today. So for the teachers who have not yet been privileged to operate in the active learning framework, I would just say get excited and have an open mind, and just know that everything you do isn't going to be perfect, but go all in. Don't do a part here and a part there. Go all in and give it everything you have, and you're going to be the most remarkable teacher you ever imagined yourself to be. And it won't be you in the front of the classroom anymore. And that's a good thing. And your students are going to be empowered and seek feedback, take that feedback and grow.